Heute reagieren wir auf Cheater in Fortnite, beziehungsweise um ganz genau zu sein, reagieren wir auf die Evolution of Cheating in Competitive Fortnite. Es ist ein Video von RiseUp und wir lassen auf jeden Fall schon mal einen Like da. Es ist sehr gut angekommen und ich bin sehr gespannt, was das Video zu bieten hat.
Cheating is a big problem in competitive Fortnite. It started off as the Wild Wild West where anything could happen, but as the years went on and Fortnite's anti-cheat improved, the cheaters had to get smarter and evolve in order to continue stealing money from Epic Games.
Das stimmt, das ist wirklich, das ist ehrlich wahr. Das war damals übrigens, ich habe meine Brille noch nicht auf. Also im Laufe der Zeit damals, was für Cheater es gab, in Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, im Laufe bis zu jetzt halt Chapter 7. Das ist insane, was es für Cheats damals gab. Ich hoffe, er erklärt das heute auf. Das ist nämlich insane gewesen.
This is the evolution of cheating in competitive Fortnite. The first instance of cheating in Fortnite, really any big tournament, happened in one of the first tournaments hosted. This was the Summer Skirmish of 2018, and in week...
Boah, Summer Skirmish, das ist so lang her, ne? Da habe ich aber schon gespielt, actually.
iDrop Bodies placed first, winning $60,000. However, he also earned $20,000 for getting 20 eliminations in a game, since it was basically a pub stop McTournament, and another $50,000 for getting the most eliminations of any player. That's $130,000.
Boah, der hat 130k gemacht.
In 1 week of an event. And looking at his Fortnite tracker, he really didn't do anything after this. He placed around 82nd in week 4 of the fall skirmish, and then around top 400 in the fall skirmish, and then he just completely vanished. Now after his big first place in week 2,
also der hat das Turnier gespielt und ist dann einfach komplett verschwunden.
Summer skirmish, he was reportedly invited to the finals of the event, which was a LAN in-person event. He was invited to do interviews. However, there were rumors that he turned down the event because he needed to pick up his cousin from the airport.
Also es gab ein LAN-Event ganz am Ende vom Summer Skirmish und er wurde eingeladen, weil er halt der erste Platz wurde in dem eigentlichen Turnier. Und da konnte er nicht auftauchen, weil er seinen Cousin vom Flughafen abholen musste.
However, it's extremely suspicious that he was such a top-level player and could win a tournament and then would not come and show up in person. Especially true when he didn't record or stream any of this tournament. Epic Games investigated him and confirmed that he was not cheating, but some people suspect that he was doing something to get easier lobbies at the time or just downright cheating. Despite Epic Games clearing him, many people do not believe this story at all, and he basically vanished from the internet, so we'll probably
ihn gibt's gar nicht mehr. Alter, okay, krass.
Never know what actually happened. However, the first confirmed cheaters in...
Okay, also das mit iDrop, das ist tatsächlich nicht hundertprozentig bestätigt, dass er gecheatet hat, aber halt schon sehr sus, vor allem diese eine Sache mit dem Cousin vom Flughafen abholen, come on.
Was CIA Gov.
Okay, das ist scheinbar ein echter Cheater, wo auch bestätigt ist, dass er cheatet. Und übrigens, ganz kurz, man hat es schon ganz am Anfang im Intro gezeigt, Cheater werden ja heutzutage tatsächlich auch richtig fette Probleme kriegen, beziehungsweise kriegen auch schon dauerhaft Probleme. Rechtlich, ganz einfach, weil Epic Games sie anklagt. Also das ist damals nicht so gewesen.
His entire motive for cheating wasn't to earn money like a lot of the later cheaters we'd see, but instead to get recognition from streamers, live chat, and get reactions. He would stream snipe pros playing the Explorer pop-up cups and just troll them. He'd fly around with a quad crasher and juggle the players into the sky.
Also der Typ hat nicht gecheatet, um Geld zu verdienen, sondern einfach um Streamer zu nerven. Ja, perfekt, ein Stream-Server auch noch.
He had unlimited power as he could edit the island, and even if he was eliminated, which he did actually die to Vivid in one game, he could just respawn. He could basically do whatever he wanted. He had entire god mode cheats. Clearly in 2018, Fortnite's anti-cheat needed a little bit of work, and he stated he was able to actually do this for seasons.
Er konnte respawn?
Without getting banned. However, I'm not sure how true this is because he didn't do really anything in the World Cup qualifiers, and you'd think this would be the perfect tournament to troll. Eventually, after he did get hardware banned, he was able to bypass this at the time and continued to cheat on new accounts. As of this video by Ranger interviewing him in May of 2024, he is still active in the cheating scene, developing new ways to bypass the
Was, den gibt's immer noch?
cheat. But one of the most notorious cases of cheating did come from the World Cup qualifiers, and that was Ziff.
What? Was? Das wusste ich gar nicht. In der Weltmeisterschaft gab es einen Cheater?
During week 3 of the solo qualifiers, Ziff was in a high point lobby and he was contested off spawn by 2 players, Bad Emoji and Guesty. These 2 players had the worst drops of all time and put up no fight and instantly died. This was very suspicious and was tweeted out by Highsky, which went viral, and after an investigation, Epic Games concluded that these 2 players were feeding elimination points to Ziff to help him qualify to the World Cup. This is obviously against the rules, so he was banned for 2 weeks, not very long, and Ziff had actually qualified to the World Cup final.
What? Also er hat jetzt nicht gecheatet im eigentlichen Sinne, dass er halt wirklich gehackt hat, also mit einem Client, sondern er hat tatsächlich sich reingeschmuggelt in die World Cup Qualifier.
So he lost
Beziehungsweise hat sich dann called.
But what's funny is that Ziff is legitimately a good player. After getting unbanned, all of that teamwork from solos paid off as he and Ronaldo was able to place third in duos and actually qualify to the finals. Unsurprisingly, you know, people were kind of annoyed about this. Let's go Ziff, good stuff Epic Games, I love a good redemption story. Remember kids, if you break the law or cheat, just wait 2 weeks and you'll get 50.
Boah, er hat einfach wirklich ehrlicherweise halt gecheatet auf eine illegale Art und Weise, hat sich dann Kills giften lassen, dann $50,000 gewonnen scheinbar.
The prize pool at World Cup, even if you just qualified, it was still $50,000 or last. A cheater qualifying for a $30 million tournament is a kick in the junk to the integrity of the Fortnite competitive community. Love or hate the game, this should be unanimously agreed upon. Every time they were shown on screen, they were booed by the entire crowd, and anytime they died, the crowd cheered.
Ziff is out of here.
As brutal as this was for players, it was undeniably one of the funniest moments in Fortnite competitive history. Ziff now plays competitive Valorant at a pretty decent level, so it's clear that he is a great gamer, but that's not what he's really going to be remembered for. But that wasn't the only cheating scandal at the World Cup, as one of the highest profile disqualifications actually happened during the finals, where Russian player Letwick was disqualified in Game 6 of the solos due to
wurde disqualifiziert in Game 6.
screen peeking at other screens around him.
What? Er hat auf andere Monitore geguckt.
He claimed that he heard a loud slam on a desk, which made him look over. However, Epic responded saying, after multiple warnings to the player, a penalty was assessed and he was removed from the match. He was not disqualified and will not be fined. So basically, he kept looking at other people's screens to gain information, and they disqualified him from the final match. He wasn't banned from the tournament, he did manage to get his earnings, but he's basically not allowed to continue to play. After this, he kept
wie blöd aber von ihm,
playing
oder?
tournaments more casually up until August of last year. However, he hasn't earned since October 2021. Now, I'm not going to be talking too much about glitches in this video, as I already have an evolution of glitches video entirely, which obviously...
Boah, lasst ein Like da und schreibt es in die Kommentare, ob wir auf die Evolution von Fortnite Glitches in Competitive Fortnite reagieren sollen. Aber warte mal ganz kurz nochmal zu dem Letwick. Der wurde disqualifiziert, weil er einfach nur bei anderen auf dem Monitor geguckt hat. Wie dämlich, man qualifiziert sich für die New York Weltmeisterschaft. Damals, 2019, war übel krass. Und er bekommt sogar mehrere Warnings und...
However, one is definitely worth mentioning.
Er macht weiter, ist so dämlich.
Elo glitch. In the Winter Royale of 2019, which was a $23 million cup, there was a bug which reset your points to 0. This meant that you would get incredibly easy lobbies because you're getting put into lobbies with other players who have 0 points who are probably awful. All you needed to do was switch off of the region you were playing and then back to another one, and this would reset your points to 0. However, after 24 hours was over, all of these points would be added back up and the leaderboard would be corrected. This meant that players were continually playing 0 point, super easy lobbies and were able to win basically every match and get a high amount of eliminations. Now, no one was ever caught or banned for this, but there were a lot of players who were accused of doing this. This bug actually returned later in Season 7 in a slightly different manner. Rather than switching your region, all you had to do was have one player disconnect from the match and you'd be put into the elo of what you were before that match started. So basically lower elo. However,
Alter, was für Tricks es gab, ne, um Kohle zu machen mit Fortnite, ne?
One season later, the first winner of an FNCS would be banned, and that would be Cakewood from OCE. Now, unlike the cheaters of Chapter 1 events, he was much more discreet. In fact, no one really even suspected he was cheating at all. But I even analyzed his gameplay in my Every Region winner video at the time, and there wasn't really anything glaringly obvious, but he did get banned. Now, unlike early Chapter 1 tournaments, there was a lot to play for with the huge FNCS prize pools, so there's much more of an incentive for players to cheat and be more subtle about it to not get banned. Now, I'm not entirely sure what he used, and to this day he still swears that he never cheated at all, but as we'll come to see later, the OCE region has quite the cheating problem generally. But that wasn't the only cheating scandal that season. Bucky and Creo traded Storm Surge damage with keys and slacks and using the heals around.
Ja, aber das ist so eine Sache, die gibt's immer noch. Also dieses Storm Surge traden. Ich meine, alle von euch sollten wissen, was Storm Surge ist. Falls nicht, ne, ab einer gewissen Zone, beziehungsweise wenn noch sehr, sehr viele Leute leben ab einer gewissen Zone, dann gibt's halt Storm Surge. Das heißt, du kriegst halt diesen Blitzschaden, ne? Und es gibt halt immer noch im Competitive Fortnite, kurz vor den kleinsten Zones, dass man sich Surge Tower macht und immer an den gleichen Stellen sich, das hat man vor allem im Trio-FNCS immer gesehen, dass sie sich das Search traden. Das finde ich, das gibt's immer noch.
Were able to waste nothing from their inventories, basically racking up Storm Surge damage without any negatives. All 4 players were banned for this, despite in 2025 this literally evolving to every team doing this to the point the Storm Surge mechanic had to actually be changed. However, they were innovators of the strategy and were banned for it. It's just funny that Fortnite had just ended up accepting this later on. As it turns out, Chapter 2 actually really had a
Ja, hat er auch gesagt. Am Ende wurde sogar akzeptiert, weil das ist so eine Sache, keine Ahnung, du kannst den Spieler irgendwie dann bannen so dafür, aber am Ende des Tages, wie sollst du, also ich finde es echt schwierig, die Storm Search Ding anders zu machen, anders zu regeln. Das ist schon schwierig.
Now this season also had a solo invitational, and then the following season, in Chapter 2, Season 3, had a solo FNCS. There were also a lot of solo DreamHack events being hosted online during this time, so this game mode was everywhere and pros were kind of losing their minds. Solos would be a great game mode if it wasn't for other people, because for some reason in solos, people have absolutely no idea how to rotate and feel the need to fight you or shoot you when you both have to make a completely max distance rotate, griefing both of your games. What are we doing? What are we doing here, man? What are we doing? Do you know how easy we could have both rotated? Become a bit
Das ist so ein Klassiker, den gibt's heute auch noch.
of a meme to tell people that you don't have to shoot
Dumme Spieler in Fortnite Competitive, boah, ist so
every
schlimm,
single
ne?
player you see on rotate. But despite that, to this day, still people have not learned. So back in Chapter 2, players started pickaxe swinging to
Boah, das war auch so krass, ne? Das war aber echt OP. Pickaxe Swing, damit man einfach beide rotieren kann.
signal that they weren't going to shoot you on rotate and that you were safe to go. Then you could pickaxe swing back and everyone could rotate freely, and it was a much more simple, beautiful time in solos. And I'll be honest, there was nothing funnier than pickaxe swinging, and when they turned around, you shoot them in the back and grief them. It was by far the most beautiful betrayal you could ever have. But because this was signaling to other players, Epic Games actually made a blog saying that pickaxe swinging, emoting, toy tossing, and jumping, and any signaling basically to other players to say what to do would be bannable. And there
Ja, stimmt eigentlich. Ja, eigentlich ist es ja
were
Teaming.
actually a few
Und den für
cases
einen
of pro
kurzen
players
Zeitraum.
being banned for doing this, like Sosman here, who got a 2-week ban for presumably pickaxe swinging. He wasn't even sure. Another problem with solos is the drop spots and teaming. Look at any set lobby drop map and you'll see a major trend. Big drop spots are nearly always contested by players who are on the same team or from the same friend group or from the same country. In Chapter 2, Season 2, for example, Steamy Stacks was contested by Janice and Tayson. At this time, they were playing duos together, so they were both landing at the same drop spot, which makes people think, these guys are probably teaming off spawn. Whether they were or not, they actually did fight in a few different matches, but this is a problem that happens in every single set lobby tournament. Now, it's hard to prove specifically who is and who isn't teaming from this, because that drop spot might just be where they want to land, and because they've landed there in duos, they're comfortable there in solos. Well, let's be real, 99% of people are probably just teaming and colluding, and I probably would too. Teaming aside, hacking got
Er ist ja auch smart, ne? Wenn du in so einer Pro-Lobby, High-Pro-Lobby bist, so, sagen wir mal so Grand Finals. Ja, Bro, so ein bisschen absprechen. Ich glaube, also es geht um ultra viel Kohle, ne?
way
Ich
worse
meine,
this
natürlich machst du
chapter,
das
as
irgendwo
cheaters
und nutzt die
found
Vorteile
new
da
ways to
aus.
sales of their products. Generally, you have cheat developers, resellers, and then the users. The resellers started to become a big problem in Chapter 2 as they started to stream themselves using the cheats, intentionally knowing
Das ist echt krass. Auf TikTok, ich weiß nicht, ob ihr das seht, ab und zu, aber ich sehe ab und zu auf TikTok so einen Typen, der einfach komplett cheatet in Fortnite. Und das ist aktuell, also wirklich in Echtzeit. Und die Leute in den Kommentaren so, yo, wo kann man das kaufen und so.
they would get
Ich
banned.
denke mir
However,
so,
because they'd
hä?
be streaming large tournaments, they'd pull big numbers as they openly rage hacked. They do this all while promoting their cheating discords for others to buy.
Guck, wie man dieses Strichmännchen da sieht.
They'd get
Guck, das ist Reload, ne?
banned from the game, but
Das
then
ist
the next
Reload.
cut they do back
Das ist gar nicht so alt.
on a new account. And this became a big problem on Twitter as well, with many cheaters getting popularity by making montages of them inviting pros and then linking to their discords underneath. Cheat distributors made a lot of money using this method, and what's funny is that often the product they were selling was just utter garbage and would all get players banned due to ban waves, which we will talk about a little bit later. Throughout this time, another cheat had been running rampant throughout the controller and
Chapter
console
3.
community, and that was the Cronus Zen.
Oh ja, der Zen in Chapter 3 war der schlimm. Vor allem, ihr müsst euch vorstellen, in Chapter 3 war das alles so eine MP-Season, wo ganz viel MP-Spray, da kamen die ersten so Waffen
Cronus
raus.
Zen is a cheating
So
device that
nervig.
can be used for a whole host of games, and you plug your controller into it and then that into the system. It doesn't modify the game files of Fortnite in any way, but instead it modifies your controller's inputs. At the time, aim assist was much stronger if you were moving your crosshair and much weaker if you were not. So there are a lot of players who had controller stick drift for this reason, because it would continually move your crosshair and give you stronger aim assist. But the Cronus Zen had scripts that kept the aim assist more sticky by manipulating this. It also had scripts to reduce your recoil, giving you 0 recoil, along with other turbo and rapid fire scripts. The problem was that it was quite difficult to detect and see if someone was actually cheating because it was relatively subtle and didn't actually modify the game in any way. Many of the best controller players like Miro were accused of using it, and Unknown Army even showed that he was in possession of one on his
Bro, ich würde das niemals zeigen, wenn ich hier sowas benutzen würde. Bro, wie dämlich, oder?
At some point. However, in Chapter 3, Season 4, Epic Games added it to their restricted hardware list and actually started banning people for using it. Spoiler to later in the video, but they also sued the creators of Cronus Zen and forced them to remove any Fortnite and Rocket League scripts from the device. However, real cheats were getting pretty advanced to the point that...
Oh ja! Wenn das jetzt kommt, ne, was ich denke, Llamas haben dafür gesorgt, es gab einen Cheat, wo man sehen konnte, wo die nächsten Zones hinpullen wegen den Llamas. Mal gucken, ob man das
Llamas
sagt.
had to be removed from competition because a Discord had been created which showed the location of them in your match. Now, tournament replays ran on a 5-minute delay for the match, so 5 minutes into the game, all of the cheaters could use this Discord to find where Llamas were placed. Now, that doesn't sound that strong, but at the time, they had a 100% spawn rate for a launch pad, which was the main mobility item in that.
Okay, ich glaube, das kommt dann später mit der Zone
Some
Location.
coaches were also just going into replays while their players were in the game and scouting for llamas and launch pads, and then telling their players where they'd spawned. To prevent this from happening, Fortnite changed the replay delay from 5 minutes to the current 8 minutes, and also at the time removed llamas from comp. Another spoiler to the end of this video, but unsurprisingly, the creator of this got sued. Or he lied about getting sued. It's hard to tell because Epic Games didn't actually retweet or comment on this one at all. But on top of this, Chapter 3 was just rough for hackers. With the introduction of these zero-build tournaments, this made it even easier for cheaters to
Das ist so schade, ne? Zero-Build-Tournaments, ich selber habe sie jetzt nicht so aktiv gespielt, muss ich sagen, ne? Aber sehr, sehr viele Leute haben sie total gefeiert und die mussten removed werden wegen den ganzen Cheatern. Das ist auch so schade.
Build to outplay them, mainly because most cheaters are downright cheeks at the game, but in zero build, there's absolutely no way to win against an aimbotter. You're just not gonna out 50-50 them. Most cheaters were still trying to hide it with soft aim, but it was usually pretty easy to tell when someone was cheating. Before even looking at their gameplay, you just had to look at their Fortnite tracker and see how long they'd been competing for and if they had any sudden spikes in their placements or PR. The problem though is once they were banned, they created new accounts and repeated the process. So with this strategy, many cheaters were able to get paid out earnings from the tournaments that they played, which incentivized them to continue and made cheating even worse. It became very difficult to actually catch them because of the cat-and-mouse nature of anti-cheat. Cheaters are almost one step ahead because they develop cheats specifically to get around the anti-cheat, and then once that method is caught, they are banned, and then the anti-cheat is updated, but then they create new cheats to get around this, and the cycle repeats. But things continue to get even worse going into Chapter 4 with the introduction of victory cash cups. Since all it took to earn was qualifying to the finals and then getting one victory royale, players could qualify to the finals without using cheats because there was a lot of players who would...
So schade, das waren die besten Turniere, ne? Das hat so gebockt, diese Victory Cash Cups, wo man immer so 2 Stunden gespielt hat und dann also vor allem im Chapter 5 war das geil, wo man dann in der letzten Stunde dann eben earnen konnte. Dumme Cheater, das nervt so, ne?
In one game and try not get caught. Now, the easiest way to track them was still looking at their Fortnite tracker and seeing if this was a fresh account that had just earned, well, they're probably going to be a cheater. Or if they were really horrible and had just somehow managed to get a lot of earnings in a short space of time, again, probably a cheater. So these accounts were pretty easy to spot, but a lot of cheaters were able to get earnings in tournaments, again, further incentivizing people to cheat even more. So to make their accounts less believable, rather than starting new accounts or buying old accounts from just random people, the accounts that became really interesting were ex-pro players who had quit. This is because if they made earnings, it would just look like this player came back to playing and it wouldn't be that suspicious. Now, the way regular cheats work are relatively simple. They're on your device and they alter your game files in some way. This makes them a lot easier to detect. And once the anti-cheat detects these, it might not actually ban them straight away. Instead, it might collect a bunch of data and find a lot of people who are on the exact same cheat as you and then ban you all at once, which is called a ban wave. So rather than using a public cheat like this, a lot of cheaters use much more private cheats. And at the same time, they also used DMA, which is called direct memory access. Now, as I mentioned, regular cheats alter the game files in some way. However, DMA is a separate system which can read the memory of Fortnite and alter the inputs of your keyboard mouse to give you aimbot, or also what you see on your monitor to give you wallbacks. So because it's not actually altering the files, this is way harder to detect. Now, all this may sound familiar because I've covered this in a video already titled Exposing Hackers at the Fortnite Global Championships, where notorious OCE cheater Forbes used the account of retired pro Repulse God whilst using a private cheat on DMA to win FNCS and then qualify to the FNCS Global Championship. Now, looking at the gameplay, it was even harder to detect because Forbes himself was a very good player before he ended up quitting and cheating, but because he qualified, the real Repulse God had to come out of retirement and show up to the event in person, and he barely played the game at all for the last few years. Every single person knew that he didn't qualify, and he was even telling the other players about it. Now, people at Epic Games absolutely knew that he was cheating, but from the outside, it seems like they didn't have enough information to confirm that he was cheating until he turned up at the event. And then, once he was there, he was banned. And surprise, surprise, later got sued. Naturally, with cheating is such a hot topic for the last 3 years in competitive Fortnite, when Peterbot started to dominate every tournament with Poyo in Chapter 5, people got a little suspicious. Now, there are really a lot of thoughtless claims and some funny posts like this, which said, if Peterbot really isn't hacking, really in block capitals, he has the greatest aim of any professional player in any game in the history of esports.
Okay, das ist krass. Das ist krass. Aber Peterbot, der kam echt aus dem Nichts irgendwie, ne?
Now, there was a lot of, odd-looking clips from him, but he went into the Global Championships in Chapter 5, which was
Ja, und hat es dann gewonnen, ne?
a LAN event where you can't cheat, and absolutely dominated. So it turns out he's just that guy, even though he still gets called Cheaterbot. But it's no surprise, after the rampant cheating that Fortnite had for the previous few years, that guy as good as Peterbot got a lot of accusations.
Er ist einfach gut.
Now, cheating was still a big problem through Chapter 5, but it was Chapter 6 when Epic Games locked in. With the release of this chapter, they posted a tournament integrity blog post, and they changed a lot. They removed victory cash cups, zero build cups, and even most normal
so nervig, wegen den dummen Cheatern.
cash cups were replaced
Wirklich
with
jetzt,
the
das regt mich
divisional
auf,
cup
wenn ich das
system.
höre.
Now, only players in the highest division can earn, giving cheaters way more rounds to qualify through and way more chances to get caught. You can't just legitimately qualify to Division 1 without being an actual good player, which in itself got rid of a lot of cheaters. Players also now needed to play 14 tournaments in the last 180 days to enter a prized tournament, and if you were a legitimate player who
Das finde ich nicht mal schlecht.
played with a cheater, you'd also be banned for 28 days, which would ban you from FNCS in that season. They also stated they'd be ramping up legal action, and boy did they. Now, even as early as 2018, Epic Games has been suing cheat developers, and they covered all of this in a second blog post a few months later. If you follow them on Twitter, you've probably seen a lot of their tweets where they tweet out the fact that they won cases, but one of the cases was Repulse God, who we talked about earlier. As part of this, he was forced to publicly apologize, which is insanely funny, by the way, and the fact that this video has over 375,000 views makes this even better. He was forced to return all of the earnings, and Epic Games donated this to the Child's Play charity. They've at least publicly gone over 15 cases that I could find, one of which is insane. Sebastian Arujo, who had won $6,800 in earnings across 839 tournaments in 4 months. Now, we can make fun of him for being a cheating bum, but we cannot deny his work ethic, because 839 tournaments in 4 months is crazy. On average, that's like 7 tournaments a day. I don't even know if that
Was ein schlechter Cheater, oder ne?
maths makes sense, I'll be honest. But do you know how much Sebastian had to pay back? $175,000.
Er hat also so viel Turniere spielen müssen, um dann so wenig Geld zu verdienen, um dann 175k zu zahlen. Oh, der wurde ja auseinandergenommen.
Now, it sounds a bit crazy to owe 25 times what you made, but Epic Games demanded the statutory minimum of $200 for each violation of the game's copyright.
Whoa.
Now, when you sign up for a tournament, you agree to the game's copyright, and by cheating, you violate the copyright that you agreed to. So, 839 tournaments at $200 a pop is over $168,000.
Oh nee.
This blog also covered them suing and winning against Cronus Zen, which I talked about earlier. They also
Also jedes Mal, wenn ihr diese Regeln akzeptiert und ihr cheaten solltet, dann seid ihr schon in dem Moment, riskiert ihr $200.
some entry requirements for
Und er hat
tournaments,
das über 800 Mal gemacht.
which was secure boot and TPM needed to be enabled on your computer, and accounts need to be over level 350 to enter, which is account level, not battle pass level. Now, this was at the start of chapter 6, so where does this leave us with
Ja, Chapter 7, jetzt bin ich gespannt.
cheating now in chapter 7? Well, in order to cheat in a tournament, you have to have an account that's over level 350, played 14 events in the last 180 days, have TPM and secure boot enabled on your PC, and it'll take way longer to get an account that has these requirements because Epic has been suing account resellers, cheat developers, and cheat distributors. If you're still able to cheat in a tournament and earn prize money, Epic Games can sue you, and then you'll have to return the earnings, pay their legal fees, pay $200 for every tournament you entered, and your teammates will also be banned. So in Chapter 7, there are still cheaters in tournaments. It's always happened, and it's always going to happen. But honestly, at this point, I kind of feel bad for them because they're clearly not the sharpest tools in the shed, because clearly they haven't risk assessed this. This is not worth $100.
Ja, die sind ja voll dumm. Also, die müssen ja ultra reiche Leute sein, die cheaten.
Before-
Oder mega dumm. Anders geht's ja
Now in this
nicht.
video, I didn't cover most of the glitches that are in
Bro, ey, wenn wir auf die Glitches reagieren sollen, dann lass es mich auf jeden Fall wissen. Schaut bei Racer vorbei. Sehr, 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 sehr geiles Video. Vergesst auf keinen Fall, dem Video hier ein Like dazu lassen, den Kanal kostenfrei zu abonnieren und schreibt mir in die Kommentare, ob ihr euch trauen würdet, zu cheaten.